A small island, roughly the size of Maryland, sits off the coast of southeastern China. For most of its history, it was a peripheral place, known for its indigenous tribes, pirates, and adventurous traders. Today, this island, Taiwan, is arguably the most important and potentially most dangerous place on Earth. How did this happen? How did an island once called Ilha Formosa, or the Beautiful Island, by Portuguese sailors, become so critical to global stability and our modern way of life? Its story is one of transformation, resilience, and strategic importance that began centuries ago, rooted firmly in its geography. Its journey shows how a small place can cast a very large shadow on the world stage. Taiwan's importance starts with its location. It is perfectly positioned at the center of the first island chain. This chain of islands runs from Japan, through Taiwan, down to the Philippines and Borneo. For centuries, this location made Taiwan a valuable prize for maritime powers. Anyone who controlled Taiwan could influence trade routes across East Asia. The Dutch, Spanish, and Chinese all vied for control over its ports and resources. It was a key stop for ships sailing between Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia. This strategic value gave the island an outsized importance long before the invention of microchips, making it a focal point for regional ambitions and colonial competition. This geographic reality has been described with a military term, an unsinkable aircraft carrier. During the Cold War, American strategists saw Taiwan as a vital outpost. It could help contain the spread of communism from mainland China. Its position allowed for surveillance and potential military operations in the region. This perspective turned the island from a simple trading post into a critical piece on the global chessboard of superpower rivalry. The United States committed to defending Taiwan, not just for its people, but for its strategic placement. This military significance laid the groundwork for the deep and complex relationship that continues to define Taiwan's international standing today. Even before the modern era, Taiwan's location shaped its destiny. It was close enough to China to be influenced by its massive neighbor, but far enough away to develop its own unique character. This distance allowed different cultures and powers to leave their mark. Indigenous peoples, Han Chinese migrants, European colonizers, and Japanese administrators all contributed to the island's complex identity. This history of being a frontier, a place of convergence and conflict, prepared Taiwan for the tumultuous path it would follow in the 20th century. Its journey from a remote island to a global linchpin was not an accident. It was a consequence of where it sits on the map. In 1895, Taiwan's story took a dramatic turn. Following its defeat in the First Sino-Japanese War, China's Qing dynasty ceded the island to the Empire of Japan. This began 50 years of colonial rule that would forever change Taiwanese society. The Japanese viewed Taiwan as their first major colonial acquisition, a model to showcase their modernizing power. Their primary goal was to make the island productive and profitable for the Japanese Empire. To do this, they invested heavily in building the foundations of a modern state. This period was marked by both progress and oppression, leaving a complicated and lasting legacy on the island. The Japanese administration brought significant changes to Taiwan's infrastructure. They built railroads that connected the north and south, making transportation and commerce easier than ever before. They developed modern ports, like Keelung and Kaohsiung, to facilitate trade. Public health was a major focus. They introduced modern sanitation systems and worked to eradicate diseases like malaria and cholera. This focus on public works and health dramatically improved living standards for many. They also established a unified currency, a postal system, and a standardized system of weights and measures. These were the essential building blocks for a modern economy, laying the groundwork for Taiwan's future growth. Education was another key area of Japanese focus, but it was a double-edged sword. The colonial government established a public school system that made primary education widely available. This increased literacy rates across the island. However, the system was designed to assimilate the Taiwanese population. Students were forced to learn the Japanese language and were taught to be loyal subjects of the Japanese emperor. Higher education was limited, and opportunities were often restricted for Taiwanese people compared to Japanese residents. This policy created a generation of Taiwanese who were educated and modern, but also deeply aware of their colonial status and the inequalities they faced. While the Japanese brought modernization, their rule was also harsh and exploitative. The colonial police force held immense power, and any resistance was brutally suppressed. Taiwanese people were treated as second-class citizens in their own land. The economy was structured to primarily benefit Japan. Taiwan's sugar and rice were sent to feed the Japanese population. Despite these challenges, the period of Japanese rule fundamentally transformed Taiwan from a loosely governed frontier into a society with modern infrastructure, a more educated populace, and a functioning administration. This complex legacy of development and subjugation set the stage for the dramatic political and economic shifts that would follow World War II. The end of World War II in 1945 marked another pivotal moment for Taiwan. Japan surrendered, and control of the island was handed over to the Republic of China, led by the Kuomintang Party under Chiang Kai-shek. Initially, the Taiwanese people celebrated their return to Chinese rule, hoping for a new era of freedom and self-governance after 50 years of Japanese colonialism. However, this optimism quickly faded. The arriving Kuomintang officials were seen by many Taiwanese as corrupt and incompetent. They treated the island like a conquered territory, seizing assets and mismanaging the economy, which led to hyperinflation and widespread hardship. The growing tension between the local Taiwanese population and the newly arrived mainlanders erupted in violence. On February 28, 1947, a dispute between a government agent and a cigarette vendor sparked a massive island-wide uprising. This event, known as the 228 incident, was brutally crushed by Kuomintang troops sent from mainland China. Thousands of Taiwanese people, including many of the island's intellectual and social elite, were arrested, executed, or simply disappeared. The 228 incident created a deep and lasting wound in Taiwanese society. It fostered a profound sense of mistrust between the local population and the Kuomintang government, a division that would shape Taiwanese politics for decades to come. The situation was further complicated by events on the mainland. The Chinese Civil War between Chiang Kai-shek's nationalists and Mao Zedong's communists was reaching its conclusion. By 1949, the communists had won, establishing the People's Republic of China in Beijing. Defeated, Chiang Kai-shek and the Kuomintang government fled to Taiwan, bringing with them around 2 million soldiers, officials, and civilian refugees. They established Taipei as the temporary capital of the Republic of China, vowing to one day retake the mainland. This event created the political reality of two Chinas, with two governments claiming to be the sole legitimate ruler of all of China. With the arrival of the Kuomintang government, Taiwan was placed under martial law. This period, known as the White Terror, lasted for nearly 4 decades. The Kuomintang ruled with an iron fist, suppressing all political dissent and imposing a strict authoritarian regime. The government's focus was on military strength and preparing for a potential invasion from the mainland. While this period was marked by political repression, it also coincided with a period of intense economic development. The Kuomintang, having learned from its failures on the mainland, implemented land reforms and economic policies that would eventually transform Taiwan into an economic powerhouse, even as its political freedoms were severely limited. In the decades following the KMT's arrival, Taiwan underwent a stunning economic transformation. Starting as a poor agricultural island with, very few natural resources, it grew into a global economic force. This rapid development is often called the Taiwan miracle. The process began in the 1950s with a successful land reform program. The government bought land from large landlords and sold it to tenant farmers. This created a new class of landowners who were motivated to increase agricultural productivity. The success in farming generated the initial capital needed to fund the island's industrial ambitions, providing a stable foundation for what was to come. By the 1960s, Taiwan shifted its focus from agriculture to light industry. With significant financial aid from the United States, which saw Taiwan as a key anti-communist ally, the government promoted export-oriented manufacturing. They established special export processing zones, offering tax incentives and cheap labor to attract foreign investment. Taiwanese factories began producing textiles, plastics, and simple consumer electronics for the global market. This strategy was incredibly effective. Small and medium-sized enterprises flourished, creating a flexible and dynamic economy. This was the era of Made in Taiwan, a label that became pretty much synonymous with affordable, mass-produced goods. The government played a crucial role in guiding this economic development. Unlike a purely free market approach, Taiwanese officials implemented strategic industrial policies. They identified promising industries and provided support to help them grow. In the 1970s, as labor costs began to rise, the government decided to move up the value chain. They invested heavily in heavy industries like steel and petrochemicals. More importantly, they began to look towards the future, high technology. They established research institutes and science parks, creating an ecosystem that would nurture innovation and encourage a shift from low-tech manufacturing to advanced technology. This forward-thinking planning laid the groundwork for Taiwan's next great leap. The government's investment in education produced a highly skilled and disciplined workforce. A strong work ethic, combined with a cultural emphasis on saving and investment, fueled the rapid expansion. By the 1980s, Taiwan was no longer just a producer of toys and textiles. It was becoming a leader in electronics and information technology. This remarkable journey from farm fields to high-tech factories was driven by a combination of strategic government planning, American aid, a dynamic private sector, and the sheer hard work of the Taiwanese people. While Taiwan's economy was booming, its political system remained frozen under authoritarian rule. For decades, the KMT's martial law suppressed free speech, banned opposition parties, and maintained the myth that it was the true government of all China. However, beneath the surface, a desire for democracy was growing. The economic prosperity had created a well-educated and confident middle class. People began to demand political rights to match their economic success. A grassroots movement, known as the Dangwai, meaning outside the party, started to challenge the KMT's one-party rule, holding rallies and publishing magazines that called for democratic reforms. The 1980s were a turning point. The Dangwai movement gained momentum, and its leaders became increasingly bold in their demands for change. Despite arrests and intimidation, the movement continued to grow, fueled by a younger generation that had no memory of mainland China. They saw themselves as Taiwanese, not just as Chinese in exile. This growing sense of a distinct Taiwanese identity was a powerful force for political change. The pressure for reform became too strong for the KMT to ignore. In 1986, the Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, was formed in defiance of the ban on opposition parties, and the government, under President Chiang Ching-kuo, chose not to crush it. A year later, in 1987, President Chiang made a historic decision. He lifted martial law, which had been in place for 38 years. This single act opened the floodgates for political liberalization. Restrictions on the press were lifted, and political prisoners were released. The following years saw a rapid succession of democratic reforms. The legislature, which was still filled with aging representatives elected on the mainland in 1947, was reformed to represent the people of Taiwan. In 1996, Taiwan held its first direct presidential election, a major milestone in its democratic journey. The KMT's Lee Teng-hui won, becoming the first popularly elected leader in Chinese history. The transition to democracy was remarkably peaceful. It culminated in the year 2000 when Chen Shui-bian of the opposition DPP won the presidential election. This marked the first ever transfer of power from one political party to another in a Chinese-speaking state. The democratic transition solidified a new political reality in Taiwan. The island was no longer defined by the KMT's dream of retaking the mainland. Instead, it was defined by its vibrant democracy and a strong, distinct Taiwanese identity. This identity was built around shared experiences on the island and a commitment to democratic values, setting it further apart from the authoritarian system in mainland China. As Taiwan's democracy blossomed, its economy was undergoing another profound transformation. It moved beyond simple manufacturing to become the undisputed global leader in a critical technology, semiconductors. These tiny microchips are the brains behind every modern electronic device, from smartphones and laptops to cars and advanced military hardware. Taiwan's dominance in this field is so complete that it has given the island a new form of security, often referred to as the Silicon Shield. The idea is that the world's reliance on Taiwanese chips makes the island too important to fail, providing a powerful deterrent against potential conflict. This leadership position was not an accident. It was the result of deliberate and visionary government policy. In 1987, the government helped establish the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC. Unlike other chip companies like Intel that designed and manufactured their own chips, TSMC pioneered a pure-play foundry model. It focused solely on manufacturing chips that were designed by other companies. This business model was revolutionary. It allowed smaller, innovative, fabless design companies to flourish without needing to build their own multi-billion-dollar factories. TSMC became the trusted manufacturing partner for hundreds of tech giants, including Apple, Nvidia, and AMD. Today, TSMC is the world's most advanced and largest contract chip manufacturer. It produces over 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors, the cutting-edge chips that are smaller, faster, and more powerful than any others. This concentration of production in one place has made the global technology supply chain highly dependent on Taiwan. A disruption in Taiwan, whether from an earthquake, a drought, or a military conflict, would have catastrophic consequences for the global economy. The recent chip shortage during the COVID-19 pandemic gave the world a small taste of what such a disruption would look like, shutting down car factories and delaying product launches worldwide. Taiwan's dominance extends beyond just TSMC. The island is home to a complete semiconductor ecosystem, including companies that specialize in chip packaging, testing, and other parts of the supply chain. This dense network of expertise and infrastructure is incredibly difficult to replicate elsewhere. While countries like the United States, Japan, and European nations are now spending billions of dollars to build their own chip factories, it will take many years, if not decades, to even come close to matching Taiwan's capabilities. This technological supremacy has become Taiwan's most important strategic asset, making its security a matter of global concern. Today, on November 26, 2025, Taiwan stands at the center of the world's most significant geopolitical rivalry, the escalating competition between the United States and China. Its strategic location, vibrant democracy, and technological dominance have made it a critical flashpoint. For the People's Republic of China, reunification with Taiwan is a core national interest, a final step in overcoming what it calls the century of humiliation. The Chinese Communist Party views Taiwan as a renegade province and has never renounced the use of force to bring it under its control. The rise of a distinct democratic Taiwanese identity is a direct challenge to Beijing's authoritarian model and its narrative of a single, unified Chinese nation. For the United States, Taiwan represents something entirely different. It is a thriving democracy and a key partner in the Indo-Pacific region. Washington's policy has long been one of strategic ambiguity, meaning it does not explicitly state whether it would defend Taiwan militarily, but maintains that any attempt to change the status quo by force would be a grave concern. The United States is bound by the Taiwan Relations Act to provide the island with the means to defend itself. As China's military power grows and its rhetoric becomes more aggressive, the debate in Washington over whether to maintain ambiguity or move to a clearer commitment of defense has intensified, making the Taiwan Strait a tense and closely watched waterway. Taiwan's role as the world's semiconductor powerhouse adds a critical economic dimension to this strategic standoff. The global economy runs on Taiwanese chips. A Chinese blockade or invasion of Taiwan would not only be a human and political catastrophe, but would also trigger a global economic depression. This silicon shield both protects Taiwan and makes it a more valuable prize. Control over Taiwan's chip industry would give Beijing immense leverage over the global economy and a decisive technological edge. For the United States and its allies, ensuring that Taiwan's semiconductor industry remains out of Beijing's hands is a matter of paramount economic and national security. The future of Taiwan is therefore a matter of global consequence. Its journey from a colonial outpost to a technological and democratic beacon is a powerful story of resilience. It demonstrates that small nations can have an enormous impact on the world. What happens in Taiwan will not just determine the fate of its 24 million people. It will shape the future balance of power in Asia, define the relationship between the world's two superpowers, and determine the stability of the global economy. The world holds its breath, hoping for a peaceful outcome, because the fate of this small, indispensable island is intertwined with the future of us all.